spiritual gumbo, Lot, the Hebrew. And even though it doesn't focus on Lot too much in this chapter, we're going to emphasize Lot much more than it normally would. And we're starting at chapter 13, verse 1 in the Genesis. And we left off with Abraham effectively what many people would perceive as pimping his sister out. We have to put a human understanding on all of it because it's just righteous to do that. And more so, we have to really see the understanding and the mindset of one Abraham, because he apparently knew that Sarah could not become pregnant. So if he has to do that, and plus this is his sister, he rode out the situation for as long as he could. Let's just say that. Now going forward, we're in the chapter of 13, and it says just like this. And Abram went up out of Egypt, he and his wife, and all that he had, and Lot with him, into the wilderness. And Abram was very rich in cattle, and silver, and gold. And he went to the place whence he came, into the wilderness, as far as Bethel, as far as the place where his tent was before, between Bethel and Agag, to the place of the altar, which he built there at first. And Abram there called on the name of the Lord. And Lot, who went out with Abram, had sheep and oxen and tents, or cattle. And the land was not large enough for them to live together, because their possessions were great. And the land was not large enough for them to live together. And there was strife between the herdmen of Abram's cattle and the herdmen of Lot's cattle. And the Canaanites and the Perizzites then inhabited the land. Stop right there. When we're reading this, we have to understand that the reason for strife is not just for the feeding of the animals. There are doctrinal understanding and differences. There are different beliefs and understandings. The children of Lot, the Moabites and the Ammonites, moon worshippers, like many of the people who come from across the Levant or from across the Euphrates, right? We have to understand that Abraham was east of the Euphrates. He went west. Anyway, listen to how this whole issue is resolved, and then understand what's about to happen. And it tells us that the Canaanite and the Perizzite inhabited the land at the time. So these are the people who are around. And Abram said to Lot, let there not be strife between me and thee, and between my herdmen and thy herdmen, for we are brethren. Lo, is not the whole land before thee? Separate thyself from me. And if thou go left, I will go right. And if thou go to the right, I will go to the left. And Lot, having lifted up his eyes, observed all the country round about Jordan, that it was all watered before God overthrew Sodom and Gomorrah, as the garden of the Lord, and as the land of Egypt, until thou come to Zagorah. And Lot chose for himself all the country round Jordan. And Lot went from the east. And they were separated, each from his brother. And Abram dwelt in the land of Canaan. And Lot dwelt in the city of the neighboring people, and pitched his tent in Sodom. Now stop right there. Understand this right here, that they've gone so far west now that when Lot breaks off, right, Lot went from the east. So what does that mean? Lot went to the west even more. Come on, I'm trying to break it down to y'all, man. They're barely in the land of Canaan, or Canaan, whatever you want to call it. So if they're barely just in the land, and they just come up out of Egypt, so I'll try to have a map that has Egypt, Canaan, and all that stuff on it, and for you to understand that where they came out of Egypt then, right, means that they had to push so far. So they're saying that Abraham went back to the original places that he had came to in the beginning. So originally they're coming from the east. They're coming from the river Euphrates, right? Boom. So when they cross over the river, which officially makes them Hebrews because they have no intent of returning, the amazing proclamation that we really need to see is this: is that the land is connected to where, excuse me, if one does leave Egypt a certain way or come out and down, because it says he went up out of Egypt. So if you come up out of it and you come around and down, you could essentially be back in the same place you were at coming from Canaan in the first place. It's neither here nor there, but I'm just trying to give understanding to how Lot would have been able to go further west. There we go. Where are we at? Verse 12. But the men of Sodom were evil and exceedingly sinful before God. And Abram said to and God said to Abram after Lot was separated from him, look up with thine eyes, and behold, from the place where thou now art, northward and southward and eastward and seaward, for all the land which thou seest, I will give it to thee, and to thy seed forever. And I will make thy seed like the dust of the earth. If anyone is able to number the dust of the earth, then shall thy seed be numbered. Arise and traverse the land, both in the length of it and in the breadth of it, and in the breadth. For to thee will I give it, and to thy seed forever. And Abram, having removed his tent, came and dwelt by the oak of Mamre, which is in Chebron. And he built there an altar to the Lord. Now we're going to stop one more time just to really analyze this. That the Most High God is like, look, I'm going to give you everything that's northward, northern, southern, to the east, and seaward. Thank you. So that means that Canaan is a place that has a coastline. Thank you very much. That plays into action later in the book of Judges when we're reading about certain tribes and where they settled themselves in, but we're not going to worry about that right now. So chapter 14. And it came to pass in the reign of Amarphel, king of Shinar, and Arioch, king of Elasar, that Kedorlaomer, king of Elam, and Targol, king of nations, made war with Bala, king of Sodom, and with Barsa, king of Gomorrah, and with Shinar, king of Adamah. So listen to that. There's a guy named Amarphel, king of Shinar, and then there's a king named Shinar, who's the king of Adamah. And with Simabor, king of Seboim, and the king of Balak. This is Segor. All these met with one consent at the Salt Valley. This is now the Sea of Salt. This is the Dead Sea. 12 years they served Kedorlaomer, and in the 13th year they revolted. And in the 14th year came Kedorlaomer and the kings with him, and cut to pieces the giants and Ashtaroth and Karnaim and the strong nations with them, and the Omians in the city Save, and the Corians in the mountains of Seir, to the turpentine tree of Paran, which is in the desert. And having turned back, they came to the well of judgment. This is in Kadesh. And they cut in pieces all the princes of Amalek, and the Amorite dwelling in Asanothamar. And the king of Sodom went out, and the king of Gomorrah went out, and the king of Adamah, and the king of Seboim, and king of Balak. This is Segor. And they set themselves in array against them for war in the Salt Valley, against Kedorlaomer, king of Elam, and Targol, king of nations, and Amarphel, king of Shinar, and Arioch, king of Elasar. There we go. And the 4 kings against the 5. Now the Salt Valley consist of slime pits, and the king of Sodom fled, and the king of Gomorrah, and they fell in there, and they that were left fled to the mountain country. And they took all the cavalry of Sodom and Gomorrah, and all the provisions, and departed. And they took also Lot, the son of Abram's brother, and his baggage, and departed, for he dwelt in Sodom. We'll be back to this later. For right now, spiritual gumbo.